All right, welcome to episode 11 of the At Bat Baseball podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez along with Miles Porter. How's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going good. Had a good weekend of baseball. Went 3-1. Pitchers were absolutely shoving. Didn't have my best weekend offensively, but the defense made up for it. And as a team, we're playing well right now, so it feels good.
That's what we're talking about. I know, yeah, we always start with a little bit of a Miles corner. I know last week you didn't play, last weekend I should say, the one before. But this past weekend you did. But what about any individual stats, man? I know I saw a little bit of on the Milwaukee Jaguars Instagram that the pitching was as you said shoved. But for you individually, what does your offensive weekend look like?
Yeah, it wasn't one of my best weekends offensively, but it wasn't terrible either. It's a lot of hard hit balls right at people and pitchers making good pitches. But I would say definitely defensively was one of my best weekends, saving a lot of runs and making some very fun plays at third. And just defensively, we as a team as a whole this past weekend, we played very very well. And a lot of guys stepped up who came into play, so it felt good. We're feeling good going into this weekend as well.
And then what's your guys' overall record?
Right now, I know I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know we have a winning record. I do know that.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I saw you guys are in first place. I saw a thing
yeah,
I just didn't see the overall record, but that's what.
I'm
Hey,
one of those guys where I'm
tunnel
playing so
vision.
much. I never check our record, but I know we're doing well, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing very well. So there's that.
No, yeah, that's that. I mean, yeah, that's smart, man. I mean, like, I feel like even just baseball or athletes in general, like when you guys are playing a season and stuff like that, it's like a lot of like, and it sounds like narcissistic, but it's true. Like you just got to focus on what you're doing because it's like if
Right?
you
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
if you let anything, like even if it's good or positive, like kind of like barge in, like it could ruin like your vibe or just the team's
Yeah.
vibe. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You can get in your head a little bit, and you're like, oh wait, oh god. Now I'm
exactly,
thinking about this. Then yeah.
yeah, and it's like, and again, I've always said this too. I'm like, as far as I can tell, because I mean, it's like I have no, the only athlete past I have is 2 years of JV soccer, and it's not even JV, just regular JV. I was so bad, it was JV2.
Hey, man, it's better than nothing, man. You got all the credit you need, bro.
Hey, you know what? The only proud thing I have is that I had one career goal, and up until that point, I swear I never played soccer in my in the team before. So at
Yeah.
least I have that right. I never played soccer, and but I made that team. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
at least I got that right. And I
Yeah.
will
You're
say
all
this,
good.
I will say this too. I'm also on a softball team that we play in the fall. And I had a pretty good OPS, you know what I'm saying?
There you
My
go.
my overall WAR is probably bad because I'm pretty bad defensively, but we won't talk about that. We'll just talk. You know what I'm saying? We'll just talk about the offense. It's all good. Uh, but back to a professional now. We're gonna start off with the Cubs, who honestly looked like they needed me this weekend because that was tough to watch in New York. But in that because they played the Baltimore Orioles too to start off the week last week, and they played one. But because the second game was postponed, that first game they had Keegan Thompson going, and I was pumped. I was like, we'll see what Keegan Thompson does against the AL East.
Yeah.
And he was humbled because he
Yes,
did
he
not do
was.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did not do well. I believe it was like 5 runs in the first inning that he gave up, but the Cubs ended up losing 9-3. Um, in general, I think when it comes to the Cubs, like we're getting to the point where it's a little just atrocious to watch, honestly. Because I mean,
Hmm.
what I mean. Like at the beginning of the season,
Yeah.
you had Seiya, and stuff like that. And it's Seiya we'll get into a little bit later. But when you get to later, like June, July, August, it's almost like a grind just watching these dudes because it's like where they're headed, what's gonna happen, especially with the fact that some of these guys are gonna be gone soon. So like
Yeah.
that also doesn't help. But in general, it is something to watch for is just
Yeah.
like how this team reacts to the negative energy. But with you in that particular Orioles game, we'll get to the Yankees. But in that Orioles game, what did you see from Keegan Thompson? What did you see from the guys? I wish we had more of a sample size to look at with those two games, but in that just that one game against the Orioles, what did you see in that one?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back on that start, there's a lot of mistake pitches, still pitches that are left up, and I kind of always go back to that just for I look at myself as a hitter. If a pitcher is going to have success off of me, you don't want to leave any sort of fastball up. You don't want to leave anything down the middle. Nothing that I can get my barrel to. And if there's one of the things about the Orioles that I think people are kind of need to recognize is that they're a team that when they hit, they kind of hit in bunches. And it can be very pesky for the visiting team, whoever's playing with them. That's what happened with the Cubs. I think it was, just a matter of just making better pitches and not letting the other team get the momentum. Keegan Thompson was hit pretty hard. There's no secret to that. And also he got hit hard in New York, and we're going to get to that too. But got to make better pitches. Got to we got to hit better. There's many things about this Cubs team that I can point out with that game and a few other series, and just think to myself, okay, we need to improve on this. We need to improve on that. I think just playing as a whole baseball team and just creating some sort of momentum for yourself and just going from there.
Yeah, and with the Orioles too, and I think I said a little bit, or I kind of alluded to this last week, is that the Orioles, they're not necessarily like, they're, by record wise, they're a bad team, but when you look at the division they're in, to get 26 wins in that division, I think is pretty
Hmm.
impressive in itself. I mean, they're 19 games out. They have no way. They're probably not going to make it to the playoffs. But the thing is,
Right.
like, it's pretty impressive the fact that they've been able to get those wins in that division. They always play hard against the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Rays, the Red Sox. So
Yeah.
they hold their own. And I think we definitely saw that against the
Yes.
Cubs, and just the fact that, like, how in two different places these two teams are, as much as they're both in a rebuild mode. So yeah, now playing off that, the Cubs went into New York, and actually before the game, it was kind of interesting because the Cubs lineup took a long time to come out. I think it was maybe like 4 o'clock or closer to 4 o'clock Central that it came out. But I was like
Yeah.
just thinking, I was watching it with a buddy who was a Yankees fan. This guy, we're like talking. I'm like, why is it taking so long that this, the lineup's coming out? So maybe somebody has COVID or something's going on, and definitely something happened, and that was Clint Frazier was designated for assignment. Wade Miley came off the IL. Who eventually, and again we'll get into that in a second, but he landed back on the IL. But I'm just kind of interested to see what you thought on the Clint Frazier situation, because so it came out that he was basically talking smack about the Yankees right before that series, and then he gets DFA'd.
Yeah.
Um, the the only thing I don't understand about this is that I know that he wasn't good this year with us,
Hmm.
but like,
Yeah.
because he had a base. I mean, just it kind of says it all. He had a .1 WAR. He really wasn't doing anything offensively. I mean, I know he was injured. I think he was injured for like maybe like a few weeks. But he had an
Yeah.
OPS of 653. Uh, I don't, with the way with the team the Cubs have, I just didn't understand the move. Especially because Brendan Davis isn't really going to come up this year, most likely because of his injury and stuff like that. What did you think about that move by the Cubs?
Yeah. I think it's pretty unfortunate, and a pretty unfortunate situation, and very, very weird timing with the comments that he made about the Yankees. Clint Frazier has always been a player that I've kind of always rooted for, just because I remember his come up through the Indians and different things that he's had to go through in his career. I don't think he's ever gotten a fair shot. And I really think he's a really good guy who is just frustrated with really how he's been treated in his career to this point. I know, like you said, he did struggle with us this year. Um, I know he really wasn't hitting the ball hard. In many cases, when I'm watching Clint Frazier play, and I know he was DHing most, he wasn't really playing in the field a lot. He wasn't hitting the ball hard. So it was one thing to not hit well and not get on base. If you're hitting the ball hard and it's right at people, then all right, it's frustrating, but eventually you're going to find some green. Um, with a lot of his at bats, it was a lot of weak contact. So I think that adds to it as well, because when you look at Clint Frazier and his whole build and everything about the information about him coming up, he's a very strong hitter growing up, especially in high school. Um, So I think it's just a matter of, cherish your at bats, do your best to hit the ball hard at least, and something good is going to happen. But he didn't get to that point. He's had a very unfortunate career to this point. I think he is a very talented guy still. Um, he just hasn't really had the chance to display it like I know he would like to. So I'm hoping for his sake he gets an opportunity somewhere. It's a pretty unfortunate story when you talk about the Clint Frazier story, but in many aspects as well, he has to play better. He has to work on a lot of things with his game to probably get another shot somewhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, yeah, it's like he doesn't do himself any favors on the field.
Yeah,
But like, I think the only reason that like I questioned it or kind of thought about this as a talking point is just because of the fact that like where the Cubs are at, like it's just an
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
It's just a kind of not necessarily a weird move, but just something to look at because it's like uh, they got room on the roster. They got room to experiment. They got room to do a
yeah.
lot of things. So, hey, maybe it's a clubhouse thing that we don't know, and something else
Right.
happened, or maybe it was just a PR thing. Like he was, bad mouthing the Yankees. What is he going to say
Yeah.
about the Cubs? It's stuff like that. So,
Right.
anyways, moving on to the games though. The first game, the first game against the Yankees was a marathon, and that was actually worth watching. I think as funny as it was, I texted you during that game because I was like, when is this game going to end?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was really like how to not win a game 101. Like it was legit. Like got like in extra innings, they went to 14, I believe it was, and it was like it didn't look like anyone wanted to win that game, which I thought was funny. But I will say I appreciated a close game against the Yankees. I'm telling you, I promise you, because the next two games were as uh poor as it gets is probably the nicest way to say it. Because but before real quick, one more thing too that I wanted to get to is Wade Miley was pulled in that third inning. He ends up on the aisle with a shoulder strain. That sucks, just because he's been literally on and off the aisle all season.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it comes back. And that was a 15-day aisle that he's going to be on. But one thing I did want to point out too also was that I found funny, but like a really good move at the time, and just a smart. It felt like honestly that first game felt like a playoff game, and I know it sounds corny because like the Cubs suck, and like this is just like those type of games. It's like you want to win these games
Yeah.
against some of the best teams. But David Ross walking Judge multiple times in extra innings, uh, I thought was like I was talking to my friend. My friend pointed out first is just like you always walking. I'm like that's pretty smart. And for me, I was just like, oh, you're just intentionally walking like the guy. But then I was like, oh yeah, he's Aaron Judge and he's doing it twice. Like it is a really smart move, and I think it says a lot of David Ross and like the management team and what they plan to do in the future. Like what kind of how they've grown since they've started. Like what did you think about that like that game plan against Judge in that first game?
I liked it as well. I know Rizzo had an O for that game. And I think I'm not gonna say he's a easier hitter to attack, but not as threatening if you have Aaron Judge at the plate. There's definitely an out you can get there because in that strategy you want to try to get Rizzo to bounce out or to do whatever and not get to Stanton behind him. So I thought it made tons of sense. Keep the ball away from Aaron Judge. He's as hot as it gets right now. He's a beast. He's the monster. One of my favorite players. And I like it. I like that move. I think that those moves make sense. You know, and it shows a lot of respect for Aaron Judge as well. You really don't want him to have any opportunities up there to end a game or to do any sort of damage. If it makes more sense to walk him in certain situations, do it, do it. And I think those scenarios that he was walked in made sense.
And I think also Judge really showed us why he walked him. If people were questioning, because a lot of people, I did see a lot of talk on Twitter about like, oh, like why would they walk this guy to get to about this? Like this doesn't seem like
Yeah,
a smart move, whatever. But
yeah,
I think those people, were educated the next 2 days of why they walked Aaron Judge,
yes,
because
yes,
And I will say this as you know, as we get into a little bit of Aaron Judge talk, is like, because you know you said he's one of your favorite players. I agree, man. He's like legit right now. I think personally right now, as much as you know Mike Trout is Mike Trout,
Mhm.
defensively he hasn't been the same the past couple years. I know injuries, whatever. But I think Aaron Judge, as of 2022, as of June 2022, Aaron Judge is the best player in the game in every aspect.
Yes.
So that you know that's just me, and I think with him, yeah, we saw why there was any type of carefulness when pitching to him, or when when even facing him the
Yeah.
next 2 days, because the guy hit like 3 home runs over the next 2 days, or I think a couple home runs. And
Mhm.
yeah, especially on Saturday as we move on to the next game, that was 8-0. Matt Swarmer allowed 6 solo shots, and I believe that was that was like history. It's something not it doesn't happen all the time. Yeah, he allowed 6 solo shots. I know. Before that game, just kind of like looking at Swarmer, I was like, man, he's a guy that could actually cause some trouble for the Yankees, because he has like a couple pitches and his slider's a little nasty. Go just throw it low, see if the guys like Stan and Judge would swing and miss. And he did
Yeah.
get a few swings and misses, but when
Yeah.
it came down to it, they were on his stuff, and they were on it because he couldn't locate it.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Cubs lose that one 8-0, and then on Sunday, I mean that's just that was even more unfortunate, 18-4. And in the series, they were the Yankees outscored the Cubs 28-5 in total. In that finale, Ian Happ went deep. He actually finished a hit shy of the cycle. Um, Overall, the Yankees series against the Cubs, it was just not fun to watch. But what are your main takeaways? And was it more of just how good the Yankees are, or just how bad the Cubs are? What are your takeaways from that series?
I think it's a mixture of both. I would say more because of how good the Yankees are. I kind of was expecting that going into that series. This is a team that is clicking on every single cylinder that you possibly can click on. They don't have a lot of weak points, and for them, points that are kind of weak, whether they're talking about Hicks struggling or Gleyber Torres defensively not being what they want him to be, but he's really succeeding at second base, and Hicks is still a very valuable player to that team. They're very good. The Cubs are a team that is not anywhere close to where the Yankees are, and just about every other team in the MLB isn't either. And it's would you like to see the Cubs win? Yes, that would have been a great story. That would have been something really cool to talk about for this team. But you kind of expected the result that we had. They're a team that they did not take a single at bat off. Even when they're winning, even when they're blowing out the Cubs, even even when Schwindel's on the mound throwing 35 miles per hour, and Kyle Higashioka is like, all right, cool, I'm taking this over the wall. I'm not gonna give this little half swing. No, they're playing their butts off every single pitch, and that's what a winning team is. That's what the Yankees are. They compete every single pitch, every single at bat, every single inning. So it's just it's pretty much what I expected coming going into that series. And it's probably a learning moment for a lot of the young guys too on that team. And is the Cubs are going to be all right. It is going to be a very long year for us. I know we're in June. Um, I'm not. It's really not going to get any better. We're going to have great stretches as well. But this is a team that is kind of in a redefining stage of where they are in terms of what they want to do. So it's good for the Yankees record. It's unfortunate to watch it with the Cubs, but it's kind of what you expect. But going forward, it won't always be like this.
Yeah, and I think it's also good to for guys like Horner, and guys like Keegan Thompson, et cetera. So to face the Yankees, to face the best team in baseball, to see what it takes, to see what these guys do. And yeah, as you
Yeah.
said, that's one thing I did notice in that 18-4 game. as it got later in the game, as it got later in that matchup, is just the fact that guys weren't taking an at bat off, no matter the score. I mean,
Exactly.
Aaron Judge was still out there taking competitive at bats. Stanton was still out there, and I was like, man, are they not going to take these guys out, or no, and they weren't taking them out, and it was like seventh, eighth inning. So it is something to look at. It is a lot of it. It's just the Yankees being that good, and I think also another thing is how much the Yankees pitching staff isn't respected. Now people should see how good that staff is this year. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at 1 through 5 in their rotation, and they literally have like 5 aces. So it's going to be really really fascinating to watch the Yankees for the whole season, see what they do in the playoffs. And I think they have a really good chance of winning it all this year. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Some more updates on the Cubs side of things. Seiya Suzuki shut down for the week. Hopefully, he comes back by the weekend. Marcus Stroman to the injured list with shoulder inflammation, which is pretty unfortunate there. The Cubs were kicked off a series against the Padres, a 4-game series at Wrigley, and they faced Yu Darvish for the first time since he was at Wrigley, I should say, for the first time since being traded in December of 2020. It was a close game, but the Padres ended up pulling away 4-1. Justin Steele, man, I mean he's had another great start. Really over the last few months, or I should say the whole season, he's really only had one bad start where he gave up 7 runs against the Reds. But once again, he was pretty impressive. Second straight start where he goes 7 innings, allowing 1 run, 1 earned run.
Hmm.
And this was against two playoff caliber teams in the Cardinals and Padres.
Yeah.
He had seven. One thing I heard Jim Deshay say, he had 77 pitches, 60 strikes. So that was pretty cool. And also he's not getting barreled up that much. He's in the 98th percentile for barrel percentage. So it's good to see, man. I mean, any type of positivity with the Cubs helps out, especially for the pitching side. And Justin
Yeah.
Steele's been doing his thing, so that's good. Looking ahead to the rest of this Padres series, and then the Cubs welcome in the World Series champion Braves, who are red hot. We'll talk a little bit more about them later.
Whew.
But yeah, what do you think overall about this upcoming homestand? And what do you think the Cubs can do against the Padres and Braves?
I don't know how much they can do against these teams coming in. I think I always like to talk about, at least we're at Wrigley. There's a thumbs up right there. Try to neutralize the offense of the Padres. The Cubs have proven in their last series against the Padres, this is a team that they can beat. Um, I really just think if you can neutralize their bats, because offensively they are a very dangerous team, but I don't put them in that category of like elite hitting. This is a team that that you can't beat, and I think who we have starting going forward against for the rest of the series. I know this is a pretty big series as well. I think it's 4 games if I'm not mistaken. Um, I think just keep the ball out the air. This is a team that I realize hits into a lot of double plays, hits the ball on the ground a lot. Try to miss as many barrels as you can. He's Manny Machado. He is one of the best players in baseball this year. And I think he really has come into his own. I think he has matured a lot. There are certain things about his character that didn't sit well with many people in the earlier part of his career, but I do believe that he is a player that is really, really good for the game of baseball. I think aside from him and a few other players, Eric Hosmer, Luke Voigt, just keep the ball out of the air. And that's really the case with a lot of these teams, man. No, they can't be missing up. So, and then with the Braves coming into town, same thing. Just do everything you can just to don't give them any chances, any sort of base on balls that we're giving or defensive errors. But the Cubs are pretty solid defensively. Just don't give them any chances. That's really it with both the Padres and the Braves. These are two teams that are playing for something this year and trying to prove something to a lot of people and themselves. So, yeah,
Yeah, and then not only that, I mean, you're right, keeping the ball out of the air because I mean, it's hot this week in Chicago,
yeah,
so it's like 100 degrees. So it's the ball I'm sure will be flying all week long.
hmm
Last or on Monday night's game there wasn't much home run action, but yeah, I know Jan Gomes hit one, but Yeah, definitely. This whole week is going to be something to watch, especially with Ronald Acuna coming over the weekend. So yeah, the Cubs got 3 more against the Padres and 3 against Atlanta over the weekend. They sit at 23 and 37. So it's still an exciting team to watch when you got guys like Seiya Suzuki and young guys out of the rotation like Keegan Thompson and Justin Steele. So Cubs got something to look forward to. Let's see. We'll see how the next week turns out. Moving on to the White Sox, where we have a lot to talk about with them. They sit at 28 and 31. They're 6 games back of first place. They're still in third now, a couple games behind the Guardians. They lost a series against the Dodgers, and they lost a series against the Rangers, so they continue not to do themselves any favors. That series against LA, they won the first game at a guaranteed right field behind Kopech's great start. He had 6 shutout innings, striking out 8. And in the next 2 games, they weren't able to do it against the Dodgers. They lost game 2, 4-1. Great effort from Cueto. He continues to do work, man, in 6 innings, allowing 3 runs. But 3 homers from the Dodgers. It was Bellinger, Will Smith, and Trey Turner that were the downers for the Sox. The Dodgers completed the series win with an 11-9 win after Tony La Russa's intentional walk. So we'll just get into that, man, because that series. So I think when it comes to Tony La Russa, there's so much to talk about. First, before we talk about what we think about his job security, but first in that just this isolated incident when it comes to what happened was he walked Trey Turner on a 1-2 count to face Max Muncy, um, and Max Muncy ended up hitting a 3-run homer. So again, he walked a player with the count at 2 strikes. And when they asked him after the game, he said, well, first of all, he didn't really say much, which says a lot. But really, what he was saying is just, he's like, have you seen Trey Turner's numbers when he's, no strikes, 1 strike, 2 strikes, something like that. Anyone's batting average is bad when there's 2 strikes. So I don't understand what he was saying at all. But I'll leave it to you, Miles. What else? What do you have to say about this particular TLR incident?
So last week when this happened, I put on my Instagram. I was like, "Hey guys, give me your comments. I'm going to read these in the show. I'm going to read these before I say what I want to say, and then we're going to go from there." So, old teammate of mine, Julian Payne. This is his reaction to what Tony La Russa said afterwards. In quote, incompetence and negligence on taking accountability for making poor game time and over management decisions. That and his management style of a bygone era, not befitting the current game. Shout out to Julian Payne. Julian is a very big White Sox fan. I think he says it great. He said that best. And another comment I got from Ernesto Malola, shout out to him, went to elementary school with him. He needs to retire ASAP. LOL. That's it. that was it.
Oh my god! That's it.
I those are the ones that I got that I really wanted to highlight and read. I think it's just I remember my dad getting into a heated debate with one of his friends last year about Tony La Russa and talking about how La Russa, his friend was talking about how La Russa was great and he's so great for the White Sox and he's a great manager for this team. My dad, who kind of predicted this from the beginning, going back to the Yermin Mercedes incident, didn't feel like this manager is going to age well with this team at all. You have a very talented group of players that you are currently managing. Now, I understand that the owner feels bad about firing La Russa way back when, and kind of wants to make up for it now. We got to think about the game first. We got to think about the performance of the players and what we're putting on the field, and who's leading these guys. I don't want a coach or a manager who's here just because the athletic advisor or director or whoever of any level the team is hiring this coach or manager just because they're friends or they feel bad about something. No, no, absolutely not. You're the Chicago White Sox. You're one of the best teams last year. There's no reason that this team shouldn't be in first place right now. I know that they're dealing with multiple injuries, and I think it's great that Lance Lynn is back. But I think now more than ever, you need good leadership. Uh, I think Mad Dog said it best this morning in terms of he doesn't know how much of the game Tony La Russa knows in 2022. Um, his style of managing and how he sees the game is still a little bit is getting a little bit more aged from when he was in his prime as a manager. You look back on 2022, this is a very, very different game. It's the same baseball game, same rules, but certain playing styles and tendencies are different. It's a game that's just evolving, and it'll be different again in another 20 years. Um, we cannot be bringing people in just because we want to make something up to them, because you're letting down your players, you're letting down the coaches, you're letting down an entire fan base, an entire city, just because you want to make a promise to a friend. This isn't just whatever. This is an entire baseball team we're talking about, a pro team with fans who want to see their team win. And in a lot of ways, I saw a lot of White Sox fans who were behind La Russa last year and were supporting him. And I know they were kind of about him, but they were letting certain things slide because they were winning last year. Now you got them chanting during the games, "Fire Tony." I don't know. I think you really do owe it to your players, and you owe it to the fans to put your team in the best position possible and kind of put your feelings aside. You kind of put certain friendships aside and think about what's best for this team. What is the best thing I could do for this team? And I don't think Reinsdorf did that for them. Not right now, at least. Obviously, he's not going to go anywhere this year. La Russa doesn't have to. There's more than enough time to turn things around once guys are healthy again. Once this season, we're only in June still, but this cannot be a tendency going forward for the White Sox. The White Sox continue to play this bad this year, and they don't make the playoffs. And come September, if La Russa's the manager of the White Sox in 2023, the fans are going to let them know that Sox fans will not show up to games. They're not going to be happy about it. So I don't know. I feel bad for the White Sox. I feel bad for Sox fans. I feel bad for the players. Kind of feel bad for La Russa as well, because he is doing his best. He is. He's not trying to lose. It's just a different day for him. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, with Tony La Russa, I think what the thing I saw, and you hit it on the head with everything you said when it comes to the decision making there, because I mean, it's just puzzling in every way. I mean, I don't understand why, and it's kind of like the Joe Maddon thing too. It's like, not comparing the two managers, but and we'll talk a little bit about Joe in a little bit, but the in a play, not that people would do this in a playoff game, but in a playoff game it would make a little more sense, because you're doing whatever it takes to win. When it comes to a regular season game in June, it makes a little less sense. Right now, when it comes to Tony La Russa, it makes a whole lot. It doesn't make sense a whole lot. But I think also another thing too that I think Sox fans don't appreciate is just like I said, the post game, conference. It's just there was no answers. There was not, to not even back up what you were doing, and kind of like in an angry way too. I think, which says a lot. And it's just not what Sox fans deserve. It's not what the team deserves. And yeah, I think he does have a lot to do. I think this season when it comes to the way the team is performing. As much as I've said before that managers can only go so far and do so much, I just think that when it comes to lineup optimization, we've talked about before on this show, it's not helping, and it's just like it just seems to be only getting worse when it comes to situations on the Sox. And this doesn't help it at all, and it's just because it's one of those things too. It's like this team should be focused on winning games and getting healthy again. if people are focused on what Tony La Russa is doing or what Lance Lynn is doing, for example, and we'll get to that in a second, it's just not helping the team whatsoever. And I think too is just the fact that like, you know, this how much this team has underperformed. I think they'll still. I personally still at this point in June still believe that they'll be in the playoff hunt late in the season and still might sneak in sixth or fifth seed, whatever it is, because I just think there's too much talent on this team and when healthy, they should be fine. But yeah, I think should they be going down that road without Tony La Russa? Is the next question that I was going to ask you. For me, I'm going to say they should be going without Tony La Russa. I think the right thing to do where to be is like where to is to or I should say the right thing to do right now would be to get rid of Tony La Russa. It just is. It just from an organization standpoint, from a winning standpoint, for like where the White Sox are at right now in in the history of their organization, they should be letting go of a guy like Tony La Russa. It just is, and I know that it won't happen because it's Jerry Reinsdorf, and I know your answer may be similar to mine, but it's like why? Like, do you not why, but do you think there's a small chance that Jerry Reinsdorf, you know, you know, actually makes the rare but right decision to get rid of Tony La Russa, or do you think that's just a foregone conclusion? Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it happens during the season. I think maybe it's a conversation during the off season. I think it's very unlikely. The fact that he felt terrible for something that happened so long ago, and to bring him back, at this point in time, I don't think he would be too quick to get rid of him, even though he's made mistakes dating back to last year with rule changes that are pretty big mistakes. And with all the resources in professional baseball as a manager, all the people who give you different information, oh gosh, can some of these things just can't be happening? I don't think so. I don't think it happens this year. I think Reinsdorf is pretty set on it. Um, maybe they have a conversation this winter. I think that is more likely to happen. But for it to happen during the season, I'd be very surprised if Reinsdorf did that unless the White Sox pull the Los Angeles Angels. I think that's like the only scenario that I can see that happening. But no, I don't see him. I don't see him leaving this year.
Yeah, that basically says it all. Yeah, I think as much as Sox fans hope that it would happen like today, yeah, it won't, and it probably won't happen anytime soon. But I mean, and I've said this before too, and it's like even before the situation, it's a hard pill to swallow for Sox fans, but I don't think, and I mean, well, now this year you can almost say it's for sure thing, but I don't think the team that's going to win the World Series or the manager that's going to win the World Series with the White Sox is going to be Tony La Russa. I just don't see it. Um, at the beginning, it was a little bit of a questionable move, but at the end of the day, the Sox still made the postseason last year, one of the best teams in the league. Um, but you know, it's just not going to happen with Tony La Russa. And, so we'll see what happens in the offseason, but I think hopefully they'll make the right decision and move on. And I think but it'll still be something to watch out for because if they somehow make the postseason, I know obviously that affects the decision making there, to see how far they go and stuff like that. But yeah. Anyways, when it comes to the rest of the week for the Sox, they took on the Texas Rangers, and it didn't get any better from there. They ended up losing 2 out of 3 in that one. In the first game, it was a good win against the Rangers, a big game for Grandal, who had 3 RBI. He at that point was not 100%, but then he coming back from a hamstring injury, but now he goes on the IL with back spasms. And so that's another tough blow for the Sox. In game 2, the Sox blow a 5-run lead. I believe that was one of the games where they were yelling "Fire Tony," and they eventually lost that game 11-9 in 10. And then in game 3, that one was a wild affair. But the Rangers ended up winning 9-8 in 12 innings. 8 runs were scored in extra innings, but the Sox were outscored 5-3. And also the Sox ended up sending down Gavin Sheets, which I thought was a interesting move too. just because we talked about him earlier with or in another episode with Chris Pennant about him, being a possible trade asset for the Sox, and he still could be. He's a young guy, so we'll see what the Sox do with him there. Michael Kopech was removed from his start on Sunday, which was not a good look. He had his knee drained, and he may start on Sunday in Houston. So that's at least the good news for him. Lance Lynn made his season debut on Monday. His velocity was down, but he just went 4 and a third innings, allowing 3 runs on 10 hits. That's another thing too. So Lance Lynn had a big argument with Joe McEwing, the third base coach for the Sox, and looks like it was out of pure frustration or something. I don't know what they were exactly necessarily were arguing about. And I think I did hear on a Sox post game where like they were talking about they were talking about how it didn't seem like just any argument because Joe McEwing looked like he was saying certain things about Lance Lynn. Nothing was confirmed though because they asked Tony La Russa, they asked Lance Lynn, and they basically just kept their mouth shut about it. It was they kept it in house. Um, uh, Tony La Russa didn't really say much about it, and then Lance Lynn kind of joked about it, saying they were arguing about what like ribeye steak or something like that. Anyways, when it comes to that situation, what did you see, and what's another takeaway from another Sox polarizing moment?
I think it's just frustration boiling over, and Lance Lynn still trying to first start getting his feet wet, getting his routine going again in the season. Um, that happens. That happens on every team at some point, whether the team is winning or losing. I'll definitely say with the White Sox, I think it's just frustration. That's all it is. It's really not something that I'm looking too deep into. It just and they end up winning that game. I just I think sometimes you got to light a fire under each other, and you just go from there. Probably it was in the moment it probably seemed very very serious, but when you really think about how the team rallied and won, and I don't know, you look at how they handled it in hindsight. Wasn't it really wasn't anything too deep for Sox fans to worry about, honestly.
Yeah, and as you said, they won that game. Yeah, they ended up winning 9-5 against the Tigers in the first game of the series on the back of 2 Jose Abreu home runs. He's killing it. I mean, the guy has 1.323 OPS in his last 15 games, so it's good. It's a good takeaway from that game. And yeah, as you said, I know it was just more. I think it's for probably got to be frustration on multiple ends. Him not being able to pitch most of the season, coming back and having or struggling a little bit against the Tigers to start off, which I think is completely normal. I mean, it's his season debut, so we'll see what happens in his situation. But yeah, I think when it comes overall in his performance. But yeah, I think I've seen that multiple times with teams that where it's not going well for the team, and it kind of leaks into situations like these, and it kind of it looks like the situation is boiled over, which is nice. But yeah, it's something that I think won't be the last time we'll see something like that this season for the Sox, just because of the way their season's going. With another update on Sox injuries, Eloy Jimenez, who's out with a hamstring. Uh, the update on him was he was pulled from his minor league rehab assignment. He's battling some discomfort in his surgically repaired right leg. Sox believe that it's normal. His return has now been delayed from mid June to late June. So again, this goes into like what I was saying, what I said last episode too, is like I don't understand the point of him trying to rush back. Like I get to a certain extent the fact that I know the team needs you. I see that, but it's like the way that the team is, the way that the things are going right now. I think you're better off just playing it safe and waiting it out. But Eloy Jimenez obviously is trying to rush back, and this kind of says it all. Of there's no need to do that. So he's gonna be back a little sooner rather than later. Um, or he's gonna be back later rather than sooner. But yeah, looking ahead for the rest of the series against the Tigers, they got 2 more against the Tigers, and then they play at the Juice Box in Houston. What do you see in this coming week? I know the Tigers are a struggling team, so we hope the Sox take 2 out of 3 there, or even take the sweep. It'd be a good bounce back sweep. Houston's going to be a tough series though. But what do you see in these next 2 series?
Oh, I think the White Sox do come away with the series win against the Tigers. Tigers aren't really, they're not playing well, but I do believe that still could have gone either way for this team this year. But no reason why the Sox don't win this series against Detroit. Going to Houston, that's going to be a very, very hard series. You're, you're playing against a very talented Houston Astros team that is taking advantage of that division and the Angels with their struggles. But that's also a series that I think is one of the times that the Sox can prove themselves, not to just to the fans or the teams, but kind of just prove it to themselves in general. We're a team that belongs to compete with those who are held in higher regard. Um, I think it's going to be a really good series. I can see that one going either way. You got a rematch going on. I love it. I think it can go either way. I like the Sox. I like the Sox going to Houston for 3 games and kind of making a statement. They could announce their presence there. So
Yeah, as you said, a rematch of the 2021 ALDS. So
yeah,
it'll be one to watch. Astros are just playing on a whole nother level too. It's just they were without Carlos Correa, but they were able to bring up a guy in Jerry Pena who looks like the second coming of Correa. I mean, the guy does it
yeah,
all, and
yeah,
it's insane on every way, defensively and offensively. He's killing it. So, yeah, so it's going to be definitely a fascinating series for the Sox, and hopefully they can bounce
yeah,
back. I mean, time is still on their side. They got plenty of baseball left. And still a trade deadline. What they could
yeah.
add any assets and make their team better on the field. So hopefully they get it together pretty soon and get back to their winning ways. So yeah, like we said, the Sox are 28 and 31. Got a couple more games against Detroit and Houston for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on now to the rest of the league and see what has happened over the last week. Now, the Angels finally won a game. You brought them up a little earlier. They finally won a game, but they also fired Joe Maddon, and that was a little bit of a surprise for me because I don't think I think I think also it kind of shows like where how certain organizations act. Like we got the White Sox who should be a World Series favorite, and they're still hanging out of their manager even though they've been struggling under 500 and have been under 500 for a large period of time now. But you have a team like the Angels who are just trying to get to the playoffs, for the first time in a while,
Yeah.
years, like almost a decade now. And so they get rid of Joe Maddon. They have Phil Nevin now as the interim manager. Uh, with their situation, like, what do you think has been the main problem, or has it been a mixture of problems for them?
I think it's really been like a mixture of issues for this team. I don't. I've been saying it to friends. I don't think it was ever really a Joe Madden issue. Granted, there were some decisions that he made this year that we were just like, whoa, okay. But I think growing up as a Chicago baseball fan, for us, it's not very out of the ordinary. For us, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he did that. Yeah, it's Joe Madden, of course. I just think the Angels are a team that they hit the ball so well. Defensively, they're all right. Really, this pitching staff has had a lot of promise, but it's one of those organizations when things go bad, it goes terrible. So they kind of needed a scapegoat, and they pointed the finger at Joe Madden, even though he got the mohawk to try to motivate his players. Uh, it's unfortunate, but I'm happy that they finally snapped that losing streak. I just don't think it was a Joe Madden issue, but they needed some sort of scapegoat for that. If you look at Joe Madden as a manager, he's a very, very players kind of person. He's very supportive. He's very inspiring for his players. But it's just yeah, I don't know. It's a decision I didn't really agree with. But if they felt like that was the best way to turn things around, and they end up snapping that losing streak, but it was a few games after Madness left, and they felt that was the right decision. All right, cool. I disagree.
No, yeah, as you mentioned it with the Mohawk, that was uh, it made me kind of cringe to myself, just like the fact that Joe Maddon, he was out here just trying to get his team going, getting a
Yeah,
Mohawk, and then
yeah,
nobody got to see it because he got fired the same day that he was going to show
yeah,
the team.
man.
So that's
Dang,
that's rough.
I would have felt
Um,
so silly. I'm sitting here with this haircut,
yeah,
no team to manage. Gosh, dang
I
it.
know exactly. Yeah, so uh, yeah, it's definitely, when you look at some of the other teams, it is kind of a confusing kind of situation. Excuse me, a confusing kind of situation with the
No,
Angels,
no.
but yeah, the team is underperforming. I think they kind of saw last year in the way they played, and maybe like, oh, this year they could do it. And at the beginning of the season, they were killing it. I mean, everyone was like the pitching staff was doing well,
Yeah,
and they were running on as many cylinders as they could, and getting it done. Trout's still doing his thing. Otani's underperformed offensively, but again, we've said it before. This kind of proves how hard it is to do what he did last year.
yeah,
To replicate it could be impossible. So, um, I expect him to be better at the plate. I mean, the game that the Angels won, you could say he won single handedly. He pitched and hit a home run.
yeah, yeah.
So he was able to almost will a team to a win. So
Yeah.
it just shows how good he is, and what he can do. Now moving on to a team that's on the opposite end of the spectrum. They're having a lot of success now. Is the Braves? So they started off the season slow. The Mets, I think at one point maybe had an 8 or 9 game lead in the division. That has now shrunk to 5, because the Braves are on a winning streak. I believe it's now. Let's see, it's now, what did it go to? 11. So they're now 5.5 games back of the Mets. And I mean, I certainly didn't see this coming, but I will say this, that at the beginning of the season, I didn't see much. I didn't see the Mets being this good. So it's definitely surprising that the Braves have woken up to this extent. Phillies were also, after they fired Joe Girardi, went on a little bit of a winning streak. But they've come a little bit back down to earth. But the Braves, and unfortunately, we said off air, is like the fact that Ozzy Albies got hurt, that comes at a horrible time. The Braves are playing so good, and now one of their studs is down. Um, but with the whole Brave situation, do you see them catching up to the Mets eventually, or do you think the Mets will be able to hold them off, and be able to secure that division? Because it looks like the Mets, as they're not fully healthy, they still don't have Scherzer, they still don't have DeGrom. So the best for them technically on the field, on paper, is still to come. So what do you see? How do you see the AL East shaping up, at least up until like maybe like the All-Star break?
Yeah, I think you actually hit on the nose of the hammer. I think the Mets do hold them off still. Like we said, Scherzer and DeGrom, is the Mets are playing well without them. They're pitching well without them. And then, when they come in, that's a whole another team. Um, no, I don't see the Braves catching. I don't see them catching this team, but I do see the Braves pretty much staying on their tail. Kind of keeping the Mets humble, kind of keeping the Mets on their toes in the terms of like, hey, you guys start slipping up, we're right behind you. We're not giving you a lot of breathing room. We are right here. So, and I think obviously with Albies going down, that's unfortunate. That also kind of plays into the Mets' hands a little bit in terms of, okay, well, it's one less offensive threat that that we have to worry about. Unfortunate that he's injured, but he's not playing, so we don't have to worry about that. But they still got Acuna. William Contreras, he's playing well, and he's not even really the everyday catcher. Travis d'Arnaud is doing great. Uh, you know, this is a team that is right there. They're right there. They have no reason to fall behind. Matt Olson. I think Matt Olson has been a productive hitter for them as well. I said it in the beginning of the year. I think he's gonna be good for them. He's not Freddie Freeman, but he's still one of the best hitting first basemen in baseball. And they have these pieces that are going to keep them right there. It's a matter of injuries. It's a matter of who's going to crack first because I do not believe that both of these teams are going to stay hot. Um, even as early as the All-Star break, or maybe during up to the trade deadline. I think one of these teams are going to fizzle off a little bit. But I have a feeling it might be the Braves before the Mets, but it could go either way. So I think they'll keep each other humble and they're motivated to outlast one another. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, them being the defending champions too also helps. I
Yeah.
mean, they've been there and done that for most of their guys in the roster. So, I think that also helps with the fact that that little bit of a hangover for the World Series, that turnaround. I mean, I'm not, you know, in the way that they've played, in the way that they bounced back. I guess that in that perspective, it's not really that surprising, just because we know they have it in them. But yeah, Acuna has been awesome since coming back from that injured list, and I mean, he's just doing his thing, doing the LeBron celebration, crossing home plate. I mean, I love to see that. So hopefully he gets it going. He gets, continues and is able to carry them pretty far in the playoffs, because that'd be cool. I mean, right now in the NL, you kind of want any team to step up to the Dodgers. And I mean, we saw the Dodgers aren't playing their best baseball right now. They just
Yeah.
got swept. They just got swept by the rival, the Giants. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
they got their own things going on. But we'll see. We'll follow that closely as well. The last team I wanted to get to for the week is got to be the Marlins. So we haven't
Ugh.
talked much about the Marlins this year, but really they aren't necessarily in playoff contention or anything like that. 27-32. I guess realistically they could make a run at the sixth spot of the a wild card, but they should be better just because of the rotation. And they have two of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best pitcher in baseball, in Sandy Alcantara. But Pablo Lopez also too is just, I mean, these guys are the cream of the crop when it comes to pitching in the National League, or just like I said, baseball in general. But I did want to talk a little bit about Chaz Chisholm as well, but we'll get to that in a second. But what have you seen over of these two guys in these overall in the season, and just in overall the career? I mean, Alcantara, I feel like, has been good his whole career so far up to this point. But what are these two guys, and do you think these guys are going to be in Miami for the long run, and be on the next Miami Marlin winning team?
Yeah, I'm really hoping. I'm really hoping they are. They've really come into their own. Oh my gosh, they have such great stuff. They have commanding fastballs and then breaking balls that complement it. They know how to locate. They know when to locate certain pitches. Um, I'm hoping they do stick around for the next Marlins team. Because this duo that I believe that people weren't really thinking about or talking about, including myself. Uh, they're one of the reasons why the Marlins have somewhat stayed relevant. Not including Jazz Chisholm as well, but from a pitching standpoint, these guys have been incredible. And I think picking up the slack as much as they can, and they love to go deep into games. Alcantara getting taken out of the game the other day and really being frustrated about it. It just shows how much they care. This is a team. These are two guys that really care about winning, bringing winning as much winning baseball to Miami as they can. And that's one heck of a market too, Miami. And when I went to the Marlins game this year, the number one thing I could think about when I'm watching Pablo Lopez pitch and just I'm looking at the stadium, I'm like, if this Marlins team is a winning team, it must be a party to in that area to be on that team. It must be one of the best places on earth. So I'm hoping they are. I'm hoping they are. I would love to see the Marlins win. Yeah, I'm loving what these two guys are doing. Loving. They go deep in the games and they pitch with so much authority.
Yeah, I know. With when the Marlins are good, I think it's pretty awesome to see in Miami, and
Yeah,
just with and it hasn't been that long ago. I mean, we saw these guys, you know, Alcantara, at least we saw him in the playoffs in 2020. I believe, or if he wasn't, he was on the team for sure. But yeah, it's like with those winning teams in Miami, they just add a different type of spark, and they always have exciting players. I mean, like in this case, guys like Jazz Chisholm and stuff like that, which I wanted to get to next. Is that there was some controversy over the last weekend that the players had a meeting, and it had a lot to do with Jazz Chisholm, and they compared him to Dennis Rodman and said stuff like that to him. And we were talking a little bit before the show, but um, honestly, the way I see it, I don't necessarily see like on the field. I know that Jazz Chisholm brings a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of swagger to the game. So I personally don't, I see nothing but positivity when it comes to Jazz Chisholm. And like as I said to you before, is like I don't like why hate on the guy that's bringing you their only offense. I mean, their problem for them has been the offense is that they haven't been able to score runs for their the great pitching staff.
Yeah.
So to hate on the guy and to drag down the guy that's kind of doing all the offensive stuff for you is a tough look. But what's your overall look on Jazz in that situation?
You know, we I'll say maybe we don't know some of the other things that
Mhm.
go on. I love the flair that he brings. I don't want him to change a single thing about what he does as a player. Um, Again, we not every, and I remember watching on MLB Network. I forgot who said it, but not everyone can walk around as this cookie cutter kind of person. Um, let some guys come into their own. Let them have their flair. Let them present the game and in a productive, but in a productive way, but also in a way where they feel represents who they are as a player. So I love it. I love who he is a player. I don't want that to change one bit. Do not change a thing about yourself, Jazz Chisholm. Um, maybe certain interactions off the field, maybe certain things work ethic wise didn't sit well with people. I don't know that there's always so much details that we do not know. Unless you were on the team, we will never get all the details ever, um, unless another Last Dance comes out. But it's just hopefully there's some sort of common ground found. Clearly, Jazz is still being Jazz, but I hope he also listened to his teammates as well and kind of thought to himself, okay, what can I do better to better my relationship with my teammates, kind of get them comfortable as well, because it's not just about it. A lot of games is the Jazz Chisholm show, but it isn't just about him. So I hopefully he listened at the same time, because I know he said that he has like he's a talent for not caring. Um, but still listen to your teammates, because they are your teammates. These are your brothers for the season. So hope there's some sort of middle ground found with that.
No, yeah, it's very, very well said. I mean, I think when it comes to those types of guys, it's like bring everything you got, but at the same time, don't be a negative distraction.
Yeah,
And yeah, maybe he has been in the clubhouse for them. Maybe it's something that that we haven't seen. But hopefully they're able to figure it out, and hopefully their offense comes alive and they're able to spark. Because it's not just the starting staff too. They got some guys out of the pen that have been kind of electric, like Okert and stuff like that. Just guys that have
yeah,
been exciting to watch.
yeah,
So hopefully the Marlins are able to put together a little run and kind of bring a little more magic to Miami because they definitely need it.
yeah.
Well, that's a good place to stop for this episode of the At Bat Baseball podcast presented by War Media. We hope everyone has another great week. My name is Saul Rodriguez. I'm with Miles Porter, and we'll see you next week, everybody.